Welcome to HP Virtual Engagement Webinars. Today's topic is personal systems and print HP Vault security. To get the most out of this webinar experience, we have some instructions. During this event, we encourage you to submit questions. To submit a question, open a Q&A window by clicking on Q&A in the webinar controls. Type a question into the Q&A box and click send. So today we have a special session with a roundtable format, and I'm happy to turn time over to our executive host, Nigel Wilson, HP Global Technical Pre-Sales Director of Personal Systems.
Thanks, Anastasia, and welcome to everybody. It's nice to see that we've got quite a few people online already, and we're expecting up to maybe 500 people today. So lots of interest in this particular subject. So welcome to the HP webinar starring HP Wolf Security. Today we've invited a panel of our security experts to discuss the challenges facing IT departments and users in this new hybrid world of working from everywhere. We will be focusing on endpoint security for both our printers and our computers, but we'll be open to questions on anything. Today with us in our roundtable, we have Howard Roberts, who is our Distinguished Technologist for Office Printing Solutions. We have Sylvain Rousseau, our Worldwide Security Lead for our Personal Systems. Stephanie Embrex, our Worldwide Category Lead for Print Security. And Shafan Martin, who is a Personal Systems Pre-Sales Technical Consultant. So welcome, everybody. So before we turn over to the experts and start a discussion, I'd like to we'll just start with a video. The video is our newest Wolf security video, and what you have here is the actor Christian Slater, who is the Wolf, and he is a corporate hacker based on the character he played in the US drama series Mr. Robot. So let's run the video.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. Knock, knock, who's there? It's your old friend the Wolf.
Working from home has its pros. Don't forget the bad guys are also working from home. What's the worst that could happen? All it takes is just one click. That's right. Come to Papa. Looks like I'll be staying for dinner.
Yes, coming soon to a home near you. So Stephanie, it seems like the Wolf is back and stronger than ever. He's hacking into our home devices and threatening our organizations through new opportunities opened up by the pandemic and the mass migration to home working.
Yes, and those are really cool videos, aren't they? So actually, the Wolf was never gone. The Wolf was actually always there. And the Wolf really represents just hackers that are looking for more information and also finding more vulnerabilities in just environments in general. So those access points, those entry points, vulnerabilities, they have only been accelerated with the pandemic because we actually we have a bigger data footprint than ever. We are started to add more devices to our environments in our home. Think about also all the cloud applications that you use. So the pandemic just accelerated all the data out there. Those devices that are connected to the network is something we call endpoint devices. And we know that 70% of our customers consider endpoint devices as a critical component in their security strategy. And customers are, of course, looking to us to increase their security posture, to increase their resilience, and also protect them against accelerating risks. And this is why we have those videos.
Thanks. So what do you see as the consequence of these changes that we've had during the pandemic? What are the risks to personal and company data?
Yeah, of course, we have many risks and many challenges. So one of those important risks is what I mentioned about the valuable information and all the vulnerabilities that are out there. So it's the access to them that is a big risk. And that comes with a lot of challenges. So actually, the hybrid work model and the pandemic has changed a bit our environment, well, drastically, not just a bit. And more than 30% of respondents from IDC reports tell us that security and privacy is one of the biggest challenges when you're working from home. So, and that brings lots of other challenges as well, because companies have to deal with more devices that are connected. We are extending company networks. And then, of course, you need to work with a distributed workforce. So it's not just employees that are sitting in one location. So at one day to another, you have employees sitting across all these different types of locations. And we need to make sure that companies can continue to be resilient in that new IT infrastructure. So we know that also more than almost 80% of IT teams had to build an entire new IT system to support that new type of working and that new type of model. And they had to also keep in mind the style of working. And with that, I mean, is that employees are using actually more company data, like accessing more company data from their homes, and they're using work devices more for personal tasks as well. So that's a lot of pressure on IT teams. It increases also IT support. That is a lot of time consuming, and also the increase of security costs in general rose then over 50%. So we know that hackers will take advantage of that, and the question is not if they will do that, the question is when they will do that. And so we need to ensure that the PC and as well as print experience are convenient, resilient, and secure. So those are the challenges.
Thanks, Stephanie. So the aim of today is that we're here to talk about what HP can do to help with these problems and these risks. I mean, what we're doing is represented by HP Wolf Security. So is that new? What is it in reality? Can you explain?
Yes, sure. So Wolf Security, it's new. Well, it actually got launched in May this year, and we see it as a new, exciting platform brand. And this brand was created to show HP's leadership in endpoint security. It was really built on all of our innovations of 20 years of security research. We've done a lot of acquisitions, and we will continue to lead in this space. But for that, you need an easy messaging. You need something that communicates that in an easy way. And so we created a banner that spans across both PC as well as print, and it spans also across all of our products, software products, services, from consumer all up to way to business.
So it's branding, really. It's an overarching umbrella for all of the security work that HP does. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Great. So let's have a quick look at another video.
Hey, Russ, that's enough for today. I need my computer to finish up some work.
Mom, I'm on the last level.
Rookie mistake. Should have used the Omega Defense Shield, kid. Should be outside playing ball anyway. Housebound kids like my friend Russell here are getting in a lot of screen time lately. Hackers have taken notice. Unprotected machines like this one are ripe for random phishing attacks, just like the fake email I'm about to send young Russell here. All it takes is just one click. Before you know it, I've worked myself right into the Porter family network. Oh. The fortune companies spend on fancy network protection for their offices is of little use if no one is there. If Mom's company had given her the HP Elite Dragonfly with Wolf security, my attack would be dead on arrival. Looks like I'll be staying for dinner. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same.
Okay, so we know what Wolf security is and what it's there to protect against. But let's start with the PCs and have a look in more depth at exactly what we're talking about. So, Shafan, what risk does Wolf security protect against? What is HP doing with its PCs, its notebooks, its endpoint compute devices to combat this this accelerated risk that we've just seen in the video?
Thanks, Nigel, for the question. So yeah, as even Stephanie was mentioning, we've had a very long history of security. We are always security focused. We've always been for a very long time. We're a chair of the TCG Technical Committee, as well as having the HP labs that promote innovation and development. And even back in 2004, we had the TPM chip installed on our devices, and only now is that a real requirement with Windows 11. So always security focused and at the forefront of our mind. So in today's landscape, there's many threats. There's a lot of destructive attacks, so such as ransomware attacks and ransomware attacks like WannaCry, which they want to cripple your devices and make sure you're not working at a clean slate anymore. There's the evolution of malware, so they're developing more malware. And more attacks are being developed, such as during COVID times, people have made different methods of phishing attacks, different ways to attack the endpoints. And then lastly, there's low-level attacks, such as firmware attacks. So this is with LoJax, for instance, which is a very low-level attack, very persistent and hard to remove. Even by removing the operating system, you're not able to remove the attack. So all that kind of stuff is built upon our kind of endpoint security controller, which is our embedded security. The way we categorize it is below the OS, on the OS, and above the OS. And this area here, embedded security, is below the OS. And everything here is a layered form of security. And I'll talk more about the solutions we have. Okay,
so that's what we're going to talk about first. It's about the the hardware, the firmware, what sits below the OS. What is HP doing to make its PCs more resilient?
So to make our PCs resilient is to do with protecting the endpoint. So it's protect. So we have three pillars: basically protect against an attack, detect when the attack happens, because if you can't detect it, you can't manage it, and if you don't know when you're attacked, you can't really move forward from that kind of attack, and to be able to recover from that attack. So those things are built upon, as I mentioned, the endpoint controller, which is, we have three different solutions here. We have Sure Start, which protects the BIOS with the golden image, able to recover from firmware attacks using a golden image to recover from them. Next, we have the HP Sure Run, which is able to protect the core processes on the operating system. So any processes that can change, like if a hacker is able to penetrate the system, you're able to detect if the firewall has been changed. And lastly, with HP Sure Recover. So Sure Recover is a way to re-image the operating system remotely without the physical intervention of IT needing to be there. So this is another part of manageability. The same with Sure Run as well. You're able to get an event and the admin is able to know when attack has happened. So this is kind of built upon the layer of resilience, and we want to make sure that we're protected against it.
And this is built into most HP PCs,
yes.
Certainly all the corporate and enterprise PCs these days. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Great. So Howard, on the print side, where you're the expert, what are we doing on the print side? What is HP doing regarding self-healing capabilities at the BIOS, at the firmware level?
Well, I think Nigel, one of the advantages of being the world's largest manufacturer of business endpoints, is our ability to fund R&D across the whole company, not just for PCs or printers. So in the print organization, in the enterprise, the managed printing space, is using the technology which technology developed by the computer organization, including SureStart, which was the capability that allowed our PCs to protect themselves from LoJacks better than any other manufacturer. Our enterprise and managed printers, they can self-heal from attacks, as well as the ability to actually detect and stop threats, which means IT doesn't need to intervene. So these features, self-healing features, they will automatically trigger a reboot back to the last known good state in the event of any attack or anomaly. It's all in there.
Great, thanks, Howard. Let's have another look at another video which explains a little bit more about this.
Let's regroup on Monday and have the rest of the team join us later on in the week when we have things buttoned up.
Working from home has its pros, but also has its cons. One being the threat of cyber attack on machines like that beauty over there. If Alice had an HP printer with Wolf Enterprise security, it would have stopped me in my tracks. Printers like these make for the perfect hiding place on the network. All I have to do is wait here until Alice points me to my next target.
Got it. I'll get it out to the team right now.
That's right. Come to Papa. Oh, look, it's Alice from HR. Nothing suspicious there. Just like everyone else who got her email. Mr. CTO just fell for my Alice impersonation. A guy like me, given the keys to the kingdom, what's the worst that could happen?
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same.
So Howard, we've talked about the risk to PCs. Is the risk equal with printers, as we've seen in the video?
Yeah, I mean, he's a bad guy, isn't he? The wolf. He's very entertaining. Yeah. So yeah, the risk is equal. And in some cases it can be even worse because there are some IT departments that they apply quite rigorous security measures to the individual computers and the business network, the things they're used to, but often printing imaging devices, they're often overlooked, and which means if they're overlooked that they're not necessarily secured, which means they're exposed, and printers are increasingly sophisticated, and they offer greater opportunities for attackers to compromise the device or hoover up the data or use as a jumping point for the network. And that's partly because printers are actually more like servers than PCs, and they've got a wide range of avenues to attack. So if a printer's username, if a PC's username and password are compromised, and you haven't got any other safeguards like multi-factor authentication in place, the most that's lost is actually one user's credentials. But enterprise MFPs can be used by hundreds of people to retrieve prints and scan documents. So a compromised MFP would have a much larger impact than a compromised PC would.
Okay, so what is HP doing to protect against all of this?
Right, so there are both, we've got embedded features and we've got some add-on solutions which can help customers defend printers and multifunction printers, and also the content, right, that's consumed by them by printing and generated by them via scans. So, and you've got to go back to this this security principle, what they call defense in depth. So layer upon layer upon layer, just in the same way that like a car has got, it's got locks and it's got seat belts and it's got airbags and all those kind of things. They all have safety and security in different ways. So you need layers of this to actually protect against the whole security area of it. So we start with things like on the layers. We start with the first one of the self-healing security features, and these are things like, again, we've mentioned it before, HP SureStart. And then we've got runtime intrusion detection. So how does the behavior of the device, is the memory behaving properly? Is the storage behaving properly? And things like connection inspector. So we look at outgoing connections. So we'd see, if there are really odd DNS lookups to going back to maybe what might be a malware command and control center. And all of those will kind of automatically detect and stop and recover from attacks. And, those are all common criteria certified. So that's the first one. And then what we've also got something called whitelisting. So which it's the only print firm that's actually earned what's called a Secure Development Practices Assessment Certificate. It's got a big mouthful, but SDPAC from a leading test lab that actually verifies that the code executing on the printer is true and signed by HP. So it means you can't replace perhaps an on-screen keyboard with your own keyboard that might collect usernames and passwords as you type them in. So, we've got certification for the embedded side of stuff. And then, again, we've got storage in the devices. So we've got hard disks in the devices. So we need to make sure that the device is encrypted and locked to that specific device. So if you take it out, it can't be used in another device, even with the same firmware level. Another layer might even be physical protection of media, because media can actually be valuable. If you can get hooded notepaper from an organization and impersonate that organization, or some organizations still print checks, right? Checks are valuable. And prescription paper in health authorities, those things can be valuable. So we even have the option of things like locking trays. I guess another one might be role-based access. So if you need to log into the device, only administrators, when they log in, can actually access administrative capabilities. So users might be able to access profiles and things like that, but only admins can do it. And the final part, I guess, is how long we look after these. We know that people, take their investment in technology seriously, and we need to protect the investment they've made. So even going back for many, many years, 8 or 9 years in some cases, there are still enterprise and managed printers that still receive firmware upgrades and security patches from HP. Because, again, it's to protect the investment people have made in the printers. So if I kind of wrap it all up, yes, we've got lots and lots of layers, right? We protect the device, we protect the data and the document that we print to it. So there are protections at every single layer for all of our customers.
Thanks, Howard. Sylvain, we saw in one of the previous videos that Russell was playing a mum's company computer. How does HP protect from this kind of security cyber threat?
Hi, Nigel. Yes, so we have solutions like HP SureClick that will protect against this malicious file or phishing attack, and help Russell. And the idea with SureClick is not to try to detect the threat. It can be very challenging to detect that the mail is malicious. Hackers are more and more skilled in trying to fake those documents, those mail. And the idea with SureClick is to protect and to create a container to open and to start those risky applications like attachment, like internet browsing. And the idea with SureClick is to leverage hardware virtualization and to create a micro virtual machine to open those activity. Like I said, internet browsing, opening office document, attachment, mail attachment. And by creating this virtual machine, if there is a malicious file, if there is a malware, it is contained in the micro virtual machine, and your system is protected. And you don't need to know the threat. You don't need to detect the threat. It can also contain unknown malware. The idea with the solution is to keep the user experience. It's to not impact his interaction with internet browsing or Office, and it's to keep the solution transparent for the end user. But let's have a look at a video to show the solution in action.
This is a real demonstration of a WannaCry infection received from an email attachment. we're going to be using a real PC with HP SureClick activated. These attacks can be attached to file types we use every single day, and in this case, it's a Word document. Windows opens the attachment as read-only by default, but Protected View isn't capable of stopping advanced attacks like this one. At this point, the malware has already made its move out of the document and into the PC. It's searching for files to encrypt while infecting other PCs attached in the same network. This process is entirely in the background out of sight of the user. However, HP SureClick will alert the user if an issue's been found. Now, it's important to note that right here, the issue's already been contained, regardless of what choice is made. We're gonna leave it open just so you can see what happens. With the unique protection offered by HP SureClick, files like this one are always open in their own virtual machines, completely isolated from the operating system. This keeps the rest of your PC protected from malware and viruses hidden in these files. See how I moved the malware window around, but it doesn't leave the edge of the window? That's the virtual container that's contained the attack. With HP SureClick, malware isn't able to access or encrypt your files, it only thinks that it can. When you close that window, the WannaCry malware is gone. Your files and your network neighbors are secure from the attack. So what's so unique about HP SureClick? It can protect from attacks never seen before, keeping your PC and your network safe at every click.
That was different music, if nothing else. But I think that's a good example of exactly how it can protect you in a short video there. So that's something we use on PCs to protect against this kind of malware attack. What about the printers, Howard?
Well, we do use a kind of a virtualization or a container capability, but we kind of apply it in a slightly different way. Because on PCs, generally the biggest risk is people, following a malicious link in an email or an instant message, and that's what SureClick protects against. But on printers, you don't normally have that ability. You don't browse the web necessarily from a printer, but there are kind of additional threats to a PC which are malicious applications, and there are options like an app locker, and which can be used to restrict the rights of apps, as well as things like group policies from administrators, and they prevent users from installing non-approved applications. So we've got extensibility inside the printer where you can add apps to them, and that means malicious applications could be, there's a theoretical risk for printers because we've got the option for adding them through WorkPath apps. So for protection, what the HP does is we make sure that the installation of the apps is completely restricted to an HP repository. So, those apps are signed by HP and only admins can install them. You can't sideload them onto the printer. And in that cloud repository, we kind of run a monitoring service that's got verification, validation, and we can kill apps at any time from a central point. But if we go back to containers and virtualization, even if there is a reduced risk from an app on a printer, from what's a theoretical attack, we still make sure we apply that principle of defense in depth. And when we run those apps, when we run those WorkPath apps on the printer, they live in a container, like a hypervisor, which is completely limited to which parts of the operating system and what data that the app can communicate with. So it's not quite the same as SureClick in a kind of a hypervisor, but it's still contained. We still stop the app from getting out into the rest and talking to data and areas of the device that it's not actually allowed to.
Great, thanks, Howard. So we've had a look at quite a few of the tools that we can, at a hardware and a software level, that we can use to protect end user devices and end user data. But if we have hundreds or thousands of these devices in a network, in an enterprise, it sounds as though that will be quite complex to manage all of these tools across the whole organization from an IT perspective. What can HP help and what can HP do to help manage all of these devices from an IT perspective? That's to you, Howard, first.
Okay, so I guess whether you're in an office, at home with Wolf Enterprise Security, essentially we can give end-to-end print security through a complete range. There's a very comprehensive portfolio of security features. Solutions, services, the devices themselves. So I think the main thing is be proactive, and I've used the phrase before, defense in depth, add layers of security to provide in-depth defenses, and also with software, right? Software that tracks global fleet complaints. Now, HP Security Manager is the software that does that. I think maybe we've got time later to talk about management, but HP Security Manager and its cloud equivalent is there to make sure policy is in place to protect the devices and to protect users without them having to do anything, without affecting their productivity.
Okay, Sylvain, on the PC side, how can we help from a management perspective of these software utilities and tools?
Yes, so regarding manageability and being able on providing the tool to manage our security feature, it has been a focus on our side to provide the tools that you can enable those solutions. So we have provided tools to support on-premise solutions like Config Manager, but we have also, and we are introducing now also solution to cloud-based solution to manage your fleet and to manage and to enable those solutions. So we have announced HP Connect that's going to be released in December. And with this tool, we will integrate with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, so Intune, and provide the capability inside Intune to enable to manage, for example, the embedded feature like Stefan was describing with Sure and Mean to Recover, to make sure you have a security posture on the BIOS settings, that your firmware are up to date, and we will provide the tool via the cloud to manage this. So helping customer with this hybrid environment to reach and to manage their employee even if they are at home. It's not only integrating into a cloud management solution, but it's also providing a capability around. We are having a feature called Sure and Mean, which basically is going to protect the access to the BIOS settings. So far the industry was using a static password, which is not very secure. With HP Connect and what we introduced in December, we will be able to manage this solution and leverage Azure Active Directory to authenticate and to manage access to those BIOS settings. So instead of using static password, you will authenticate against Azure Active Directory to access and modify those settings. So that's something we were introducing with the HP Connect in December. The other things that we have looked at, and we have introduced a solution called Sure Access, is we have looked at admin and we have looked at the PC from an admin. It's really a target for a hacker. So if he can compromise a PC from an admin, he can potentially manage to steal credentials that for high value server, and it's really a critical target. So with Sure Access, what we have done is we have taken the idea of SureClick and we have reversed the idea. So instead of protecting your system from a malicious app, with Sure Access, we are doing the reverse. We are protecting a critical application from a compromised system. And here the idea is, even if your PC is compromised, with Sure Access, you are going to leverage a protected virtual machine to run, for example, a RDP session with a critical resource like your Active Directory. And this protected virtual machine will protect you from keylogger. For example, if your system, if your PC get compromised as a keylogger, that will protect you from the hacker to steal your credential. It will protect you also against key injection. So if the hacker if your system is compromised and the attacker try to inject keystroke in your RDP session, that's what Sure Access is we try to protect against. And that's basically taking the idea with virtualization from SureClick, but reversing and targeting also to the admin, PC admin. So that's basically some example of what we are doing to help IT and to help customer admin.
Great, thanks, Sylvain. Okay, so we've had a look at hardware, software, and administration tools that we can use to help IT departments to manage all of these security tools, which help manage against the threat. But let's have a look at another way that HP and its partners can support you. Let's have a look at another video.
This place used to be the picture of commerce, but now that everybody's working from home, it's a ghost town. Little do they know, one of their colleagues just blasted out a file to the entire company without realizing yours truly was hiding inside. Now that I'm in, it's time to have some fun. Hey, Jerry from finance. And just like that, I've bricked every employee's device, rendering each of their computers and tablets useless. Now they're nothing but expensive paperweights. Let's check in on the IT team, see how they're handling the news, shall we? Oops, I must have left them off my list. These poor folks. No advanced AI tools to identify incoming threats, no real-time data evaluation. Without a partner to help them think it all through, they're left to fend for themselves.
My computer just crashed and I can't get a hold of anyone at the office.
Okay, I may or may not have also shut off the phones in the office, because why not?
Why do you think I'm calling? I need you to get down to the office and fix this.
If they'd had HP Wolf Security Services, AI would have sniffed out my attack before it snuck in through the back door. Looks like they've got everything under control.
Okay, scary stuff. So Howard, many customers in the past have taken advantage of HP managed print services, but what kind of security service can be added by HP and their partners to help manage this?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a number of offerings here. So, you know, this MPS has the ability, or Managed Print Service has the ability to add security services onto the back of it. Same with our partner network, our resellers are accredited for that. And that's because, you know, when you bring in a service, you know, it's the ongoing service that's important to there. And certainly security, it's not a one-stop shop. You know, if you use to use the cliche, security is a journey, not a destination, right? It's necessary to monitor the fleet of devices, whether they're compute or print devices, continuously. Now, with a managed print service, most IT organizations have already got some understanding of PC security, and again, I've talked about them before, but subjects like group policy and Windows configuration. But when it comes to printing, they're often unaware of the risks around the devices, and even if they are aware, they're probably not familiar with actually how to manage that risk. So outsourcing print fleet security or adding it onto a managed print service, it needs, you know, because it needs policies. You have to implement policies for different groups. You know, you've got one policy, security policy for the call center, one for marketing, one for R&D, another one for home users, and also types of printers. And then if you look on top of that, the remediation of security events, there's a reporting, things like identity management, and other aspects of a print fleet. Most customers really don't know much about those. You know, and some of the things that you might do to secure a printer, like making sure the embedded web server has a unique password. You turn off stuff like FTP or older protocols like SNMP 1 and 2. Again, you can do those on PCs, but often people don't know how to do them on on printers. So and one really important part of this might be identity management, right? You know, when someone uses a server or like a service, right? We've just had Black Friday, right? I mean, people go to Amazon on Black Friday, you know it's Amazon, right? Because the web browser tells you it's Amazon. You've got a signed digital certificate. But when you print, do you know you're actually printing to a printer? It might be a random device which advertises itself as a printer, and you know capturing confidential documents, and then you forward them to a genuine device. You know, it's a classic man in the middle attack. And solutions that HP's developed, like Security Manager, to help people manage that policy are the tools that HP use and our partners use to help customers. So kind of a long answer to the question, but what it means is that customers, if you want to ensure your fleet's secure, they've got to educate themselves around the risks and mitigate them. But if they're not familiar with it, if they think they might have missed something, they need to go engage with HP or a certified partner who's trained by HP. We assess the fleet, check it, look at how the policies, look at how they're used, and provide services and policies to protect the fleets. And a knowledgeable partner can support customers with all sorts of additional services, and that will protect a print environment in a managed print service.
Great, thanks, Howard. So Sylvain, what types of service can we add to protect our computers in an enterprise environment on the PC side?
So on PS side, one of our focus with service has been to provide service around deploying those solutions and running those solutions. So this has been one of the focus, because we have survey shows that, for example, a number that strike me is that we have around 3 million unfilled position in security area. So that's a big challenge resource for a corporate customer. So what we are providing is, first, we are providing service around deploying the solution. I was talking about SureClick Enterprise, so that can be deployed on premise, and we can provide you with a service that will deploy this. But we can also host the solution and manage the solution in our cloud. So to deliver this as a software as a service, and spare you the burden of maintaining the solution. We are also introducing a new service. So we have announced a service which is called Wolf Protect and Trace. And basically it's going to be a solution to track your asset and protect the data when this device got stolen. And this service, this solution, will be based on some of our hardware capability. So we will leverage some of the capability of the endpoint security controller. So what Shafan was talking about with SureRun, we are going to leverage this to make the solution persistent. So we will be able, by leveraging our hardware, to get this agent and the solution persistent. So even if you are removing, wiping the hard drive, we are still able to track your asset, to track your PC. And if it gets stolen, with this solution, you are able to do a secure erase, a secure lock to protect the data. So to protect the user data. We are also bringing some innovation in the way that we will manage and authorize those secure erase command, and basically looking at the use case where one of your admin get compromised or get his PC get hacked. You don't want that it then be leveraged to launch an attack where you are wiping the full fleet from your network. So basically, with this solution, we are introducing some also new capability that will distribute and require more than one admin to authorize those commands. So to secure, even put more security around this solution on the command. Third, another example is we're also providing some service at factory to basically provision and enable those security solutions that the PCs that is shipped to you is already protected, secure feature already enabled, and it's already compliant with your security baseline. And that's something we can do at factory. So we can enable those hardware feature like Sure Recover, Sure Admin, protect the hardware layer, but also obviously the software and pre-install SureClick or those security solution. And that can be directly shipped to your end user. So that's also helping customer in with the challenge of remote working or not having the user in the office to stage the PC. So it can be staged in our factory. So that's one of the services we deliver.
Yeah, I think at HP and some customers were looking at that before the pandemic. How do we, ship devices securely to people at home? And over the pandemic, it was absolutely essential to be able to do that. And moving forward, it's the same thing. So it's great to see that HP's, really made those services now fully available. Because in this new hybrid environment, we're definitely going to need that. That's a really important point, I think. Great. Okay, well, that's enough from me and questions from me. We're now going to move into a Q&A session. Before I go there, I'll just let you know that we're going to put a survey up. So basically you fill that survey in and then your screen will clear. It's just to help us to see how we did and make sure that we can improve these webinars and these events that we do moving forward. So if you could fill in that satisfaction survey, that would be great. So now let's move to the Q&A. We do have a couple of questions that were sent to us before the event. So let's start with those. So why would I need Wolf Security rather than other third-party antiviruses? That's going to go to Silva, I think. What would you like to say about that, Silva?
Yeah, so we with Wolf Security, we are going beyond what a classic antivirus do. Like we were showing you with SureClick, we are having new approach to really focus on protection, not trying to detect, because sometimes it can be very challenging and antivirus will fail. We are introducing technologies that based on isolation, based on virtualization, protect your critical application, like you have seen in the video, attachment, Office, internet browsing. We are also looking at different layers, not only at the operating system, but we are looking also at the hardware firmware layer, because we have an example of attack and antivirus will not be able to do this. So with Wolf Security, we are looking also at this side. We're also with Wolf Security talking about resilience, and I think it's important. The worst can happen. What's your disaster recovery plan on this? And we have solutions like Sure Recover. If the worst happen, we have a solution that will quickly reinstall your OS, get your user back to productivity, minimizing the downtime. So ensuring business continuity. So that's what we have with resilience. And obviously also, we are providing service. We are providing also tool, cloud-based tool to manage, to make sure that those solutions are up and running, deploy and enable.
Okay, thanks, Silva. So I mean, one of the key things I would say there is the Wolf Security raft of products are not antiviruses. They are something different that goes beyond antiviruses. Yeah, that makes sense. Good. We've got one in the chat. If you do want to ask any questions, just put them in the chat and we will, there's a Q&A, sorry, not the chat, the Q&A button at the bottom there, you can see if you click on that and submit your question there, we'll be able to see it. So somebody's put a question in there, so I'm going to read it out. Besides functionalities, I'm interested to understand how this will integrate with the tool stack that enterprise customers are using. CIEM, Sentinel, MEM, MS Defender for endpoint, etc. Correlating events has become very crucial for sure on the security side of the house. So I think probably Silva again on that one. So integrating with other tools. Silva.
Yes, we are working especially with SureClick to integrate into SIEM. And basically with SureClick, what you have seen is protect, but we are also collecting the information that we can detect from the virtual machine. So if there is a security event which are detected and malicious activity inside this VM, that can be centrally reported, and that integrate, and we have integration into a third-party SIEM. You have also seen that we are integrating also into a third-party solution, enterprise solution, to deploy and to manage those solutions. So it's really important to do this integration with customer enterprise tool.
Okay, thanks, Silva. Somebody's just asked, will we get the presentation later by mail? Stephanie, maybe you can answer that one.
Sure. There's a recording that's available that we didn't give a presentation really, but recording will be made available after the webinar has finalized. And of course, there's lots of information out there regarding Wolf security. So I also advise to use our website, hp.com/wolfsecurity. There you can find very structured, everything related to print security, PC security, Wolf security with videos and brochures, etc. So.
Yeah, the good thing about having one branding like Wolf Security is it's very easy to find on the hp.com website.
Yes.
Thanks for that. But yeah, we will have a version of, not the presentation, but certainly the discussion and the webinar that we've run today. We'll send out a link so that you can come back to this if you've missed part of it, or if you want to go back over some of the stuff that we've been discussing. Thanks. So Howard, here's one for you. Are printers seriously at risk to an organization's security? They've been networked for nearly 30 years, and surely we would have heard about attacks via printers by now.
Right, well, I guess maybe they hadn't necessarily been looking in the right place, because I mean, yes, there's absolutely a genuine risk. And if you look wider than printers, you know, the history for people who've ignored security on network devices, it's not good, right? So, you know, you look at Target, right? Target didn't expect to be hacked and lose $300 or $400 million through their air conditioning system. You know, the co-op in Sweden had to shut down its entire operating base because their managed service provider in the US got hacked, right? And if you look at consumer devices, you've got, you know, there's a history of babysitting cameras which have been taken over and used to spy on families. And, you know, those things called the Internet of Things, these kind of cloud connected devices, they can be attacked and used as a jumping off point. Now, think about all our customers out there listening into us. Just think about it. Have you got an old smart TV on your home network? And if you have, when was it last updated? Firmware, was it updated months, years ago? How do you know? So the risk is that any network device which isn't updated by a manufacturer can be attacked and used as a jumping off point, or what they call a lateral move, to compromise other devices on the network with things like ransomware. So if we come specifically back to printers, just go onto YouTube and look for hacking printers, right? You've got videos going back 10, 15 years of security researchers poking around at printers and finding things that shouldn't necessarily be done. Some of them are HP printers, some of them are other manufacturers' printers. I'm not picking on Canon, but there's a Canon consumer printer from about 8-9 years ago with people running Doom on it, right? Showing that the firmware was vulnerable. And I think the other thing with cloud connected printers, and they allow people to scan and to print to services like Microsoft 365 or G Suite or DocBox. The credentials for accessing those services are not necessarily stored on the device, but they can use as a jumping point to talk to those repositories where we keep confidential information, right? So a printer is not just a printer. Just because they've been around for 30 years doesn't mean that they're the old beige boxes of 30 years ago, right? They're sophisticated cloud-connected devices, and security can be a real risk to them if they're not maintained and looked after by the users and updated and monitored and managed.
Yeah, I mean they have an OS and they are server level devices with lots of information on them and fully networked. Yeah, and I mean my own experience on this, and I'm not a security expert, but I do obviously do a lot of work with people who do security, etc. And one of the things that I've seen is you know, when we first started protecting the BIOS on the PCs and on the printers with what we call our biosphere, nobody was really attacking those things. There were no LoJack and firmware kind of attacks at the very lowest levels. And we started that several years ago. But in the last 2 years, those attacks have started. Yeah. And, you know, devices that haven't got that protection are out there and they're not protected and they never will be protected in most cases. So, you know, you have to be ahead of the game. So sometimes, you know, thinking about, you know, a lot of printers aren't protected because people don't think you can attack via them, and as a result, you know, the passwords may not be set, and therefore it's easy to get into the printers and use them as this place to start the attack from.
100%, Nigel, because, you know, if you look, a printer talks to LDAP, it talks to directory services, it talks to Active Directory to authenticate. So if you can get into it, it's a possible jumping off point. You know, going back to the BIOS thing, you know, I think one of the things about HP is we're a founding member, right? The Trusted Computing Group, going back years and years and years. We were involved in things like root of trust and hardware root of trust and things like TPMs, going back years. You know, we found it with Microsoft and Intel and IBM, and we're still a member of that. So that technology that we develop alongside with that group and is developed by the PC organization and is in the printers is fundamental to securing the devices and the operating system. So we really do have to make sure we pay a lot of attention to this stuff, to device level security, to protect ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Another one maybe for you, Howard. There's a question here. When is the IDC printer security report due?
Well, I don't know when the latest one's due. I think the last one, Stephanie, I think we talked about this. The last one that came out, we found HP right at the very top of the tree. You know, if you think about your quadrants and things, we were right at the very top of the tree on the last one that came out. And we've only added features and capabilities since then. So, you know, Stephanie knows when that other one's going to be out. She could perhaps jump in here. But at the last one, we've been around. We were right at the top of that security tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's most likely in the it's most likely in the beginning of next year, because we have the analysis is done on a yearly basis. So.
Yeah, and if you look at other capabilities, you know, things like BIOS Labs and things like that, we're the only manufacturer to pass all of their very, very significant test and penetration tests that they did in our devices and software. So, you know, I'd like to think we're maintaining and even increasing our position in the industry.
Okay, great. So we're coming to the end now. So I'm going to close the discussion down. Thanks to all of our presenters and experts today, and thanks to everybody involved and all the questions that we got. Before we go, I mean, that brings us to the end of the webinar. But before we go, if you enjoyed that, I would like to invite you to another security webinar we will be hosting around HP's security partnership with Intel and what we are doing together to further combat the threats we have discussed today. So looking at some of the things that we have today, how that integrates, how some of that comes from Intel, and looking at maybe a deeper level, specifically at the hardware, mainly on the PC side, but I mean, Intel do help us on the print side as well. So it'll be at 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 15th. It's on the screen at the moment. So we're posting a link to register for this event in the chat box. If you have any questions on this or need some help, then just contact your HP salesperson or contact or the contact you have for HP, and they can help you. And, you know, if you've got any questions or you want to engage with HP around all of these security solutions we've been talking about, or Wolf Security in general, or a specific piece of security, or you want to consult with us, then please contact your HP salesperson, your HP channel partner that services you, and that should allow you to get through to the right people. And they can then contact people inside HP in your country, or even the experts that you've been talking to today. I manage a couple of the people on the call today, and I authorize them to go and meet with different customers around Europe, around the US, around the world, etc. So by all means, get in touch with us if you want to talk to us. Okay. So finally, I just want to thank you for attending today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our future webinars in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.